is coming to an end, which means Among the Pine Trees being strapped to the top of an SUV by a father struggling to get through the day, Adam Sandler's menorah burning bright, and Target putting out all their Valentine's Day candy, it's time for end of the year awards. We here at the Perfect Reload Laboratories take this kind of thing very seriously. So serious, in fact, we ran out of time to play many major video game releases this year. Honestly though, this was a little bit of a down year personally, as a lot of the quote-unquote big game releases were things that just don't interest me. If you're expecting to see God of War or Elden Ring on this list, you're gonna have to look at literally every other game of the year list where I'm sure they'll be battling it out for the top spot. With that in mind, I took this year as an opportunity to branch out a bit from what I usually play and try new things. I'm not someone who ever plays what you would consider a horror game, as I just don't like being scared. I like horror movies just fine, but that feeling of stress, dread, and tension when playing a video game, an activity I relate to relaxation, just isn't for me. However, I trudged my way through the digital ode to teen summer camp massacres that was The Quarry, and I'm very happy that I did. While I don't know how many more horror games I'll play, I'm much more open to the prospect now. On the flip side of horror, I've never been much in the way of a Zelda fan. I just couldn't get into them and their whole style of play. It's not for lack of trying. I think I've played most major Zelda releases from the NES through the GameCube, but none ever caught on with me, so I stopped trying. On the other hand, a little game called Tunic, which to me seems very much like a mix of Zelda and Fez, won my heart earlier this year. I'll elaborate more later on, but it certainly wasn't the type of game I expected to play, much less enjoy. Chalk another win up to the power of Game Pass and the ability to try games out with no financial risk. Honestly, I think Game Pass was probably the best part of the year when it comes to video games because it's essentially replaced the idea of a demo disc, and demo discs, for a lot of us, were a huge part of our childhood. I long for the days of begging my parents to take me to Pizza Hut so I could make a salad with a pile of those weird, dry, brown, squiggly line-looking breadsticks while sitting under those beautiful stained glass lamps as we all await the Hut to serve up its finest pan pizza so I could take home one of those coveted Pizza Hut demo discs. Honestly, with the original Tony Hawk Pro Skater demo coming from one of those PS1 demo discs, I guess I could say that Pizza Hut was my gateway into punk and hardcore. My biggest musical influences originated from the pepperoni scene of the late 1990s. With that nice preamble out of the way, let's start diving into some awards. First, before we get into video games, I want to take a brief detour and talk about some of the music, movies, and TV shows that I enjoyed throughout the year. I decided to skip doing any type of top 5 for movie and TV shows because I just don't see that many current movies and shows in a timely fashion. That being said, I did enjoy Uncharted, Jackass Forever, Clerks 3, and The Batman at the movies. The new Scream was one of the worst piles of shit I've ever spent money on at the cinema. On television, I checked out The Patient, The Bear, and Severance, and I quite enjoyed the newest season of Cobra Kai. I broke music down into 2 categories, the top 5 songs I enjoyed this year, and the top 5 albums with an honorable mention for both. In order from 5 to 1, let's start off with the songs I enjoyed the most. We're going to begin with the honorable mention, Numb Little Bug by M. Byhold. I'm not on TikTok, I don't use TikTok, but it's impossible for TikTok to not bleed over into your regular life, and I will say that I'm pretty guilty of sitting on Instagram and scrolling through their version of TikTok, the Reels, I think they're called. And honestly, I think a lot of those are just TikToks that get reposted over there. So I heard this song a lot towards the beginning of the year, and I really enjoyed it. It's got some nice subversive lyrics that kind of bring me back to the glory days of Tears for Fears in the 80s. It's a really solid track, and honestly, I can always go for very well-produced and well-written pop music. You know, it kind of never gets old, so certainly a standout track for me throughout the year. I really, really enjoyed it. And unfortunately, I don't think I listened to anything else she's done. I probably should do that because this song was really, really something else. All right, number 5 for my favorite songs of the year, Fuck You Money by Paul Cawthon. Paul Cawthon is a country artist, much in the way of like a Cody Jinks or Coulter Wall, outlaw kind of thing. He had a pretty big song a couple years ago called Cocaine Country Dancing. Really, really enjoyed this track. I think it's the best track on the album, which is called Country Coming Down. Really, really enjoyed it. Number 4, Rotoscope by Spirit Box. I was kind of surprised to see Spirit Box release new music this year because last year they released their debut album. I figured they'd probably take a little bit of a break, but they had enough time to put out another EP, and the Rotoscope song from that EP I thought was really, really well done. A lot of people compared it to Garbage, Garbage the band from the 90s, and I can definitely see that. It's got a whole hell of a lot more of an electronic vibe and influence than a lot of their previous stuff. Really kind of blending together, their particular brand of metalcore with this electronic stuff. We're really starting to see that new metal influence creep in. I think the thing that really kind of kicked it off was the last Code Orange album. Really had a lot of that on it, and I think Code Orange did great with it, and Spirit Box doing it really well as. Also, I do worry that this is going to become a trend that eventually gets just buried and just smashed into everybody that listens to this kind of music to the point where you just kind of get sick of it, but we haven't at that point yet. Number 3, Darkness at the Heart of My Love by Ghost from their new album Impera. Impera is a really, really solid album. I actually think from start to finish, probably their best album. Now, it doesn't have like the big hits that previous albums have. It doesn't really have an analog to like a Square Hammer or a Rats, but overall, from start to finish, it's just a really, really solid record. And you could pick out almost any track on it and say that, like, hey, this stands up with anything else that they've done, while it may not have, like, that mainstream reach that some of their other stuff had. But I really, really enjoyed this song in particular. Excellent, excellent track by them. And number 2 is actually a big surprise. So number 2 actually came out while I was writing this script, and I had to make a big change because I have been obsessed with this song. I think it came out, I'm recording this on a Tuesday. I believe it came out last Monday, and that's Lux Eterna by Metallica from their yet-to-be-released album 72 Seasons, which is coming out next spring. I think this is probably the best Metallica song since Load and Reload. A lot of people don't like Load and Reload. I like Load and Reload. I think King Nothing's a great song. Until It Sleeps is a great song, and Lux Eterna is absolutely fantastic. That's not to say that Hardwired to Self-Destruct and Death Magnetic and even Saint Anger had bad songs. I mean, well, Saint Anger had a lot of bad songs, but, the kind of singles from those albums, still kind of stand out, and they aren't bad. Metallica, I think, has put out some really great music, some of the strongest music of their career over the past couple of albums, but something about this song, it's shorter than the typical Metallica song we've gotten used to over the past few albums, and it just it's very punchy, hits hard. James's vocals sound great, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head, so it's earned its spot. And then number 1, my favorite song this year is Pine Barrens by Jakey. If you're not familiar with Jakey, you actually may know him from YouTube because he goes under the name Nakey Jakey. He's a pretty big YouTuber. His videos get, millions of views, incredibly popular, but he has a music career, and that's kind of what he's been focusing on, and put out an album this year. He might be considering an EP. I'm not really sure what he's considering it, but this song, I really enjoyed the original version that came out, and then when the record came out, it's a little bit of a tweaked version. I think it's got an extra verse in it, and lyrically it hits pretty hard, and I'm not a huge hip-hop rap fan. I'm very picky with the hip-hop and rap that I listen to, but something about his particular brand just really, really kind of jives with what's going on in my head and what I like to listen to. So yeah, my absolute favorite song of the year, Pine Barrens by Jakey. All right, let's talk about albums as a whole. I know, obviously, these days the music industry has conditioned us to just go after singles, and I completely understand that. But I still really enjoy listening to an album from start to finish, and I very much appreciate when a band puts effort into having an album that's listenable from beginning to end, because throughout all of time, bands have buried filler tracks in the middle or on the back end of an album. I thought these albums were really, really good from start to finish. Let's start off with that honorable mention. That's James and the Shame with Human Overboard. James and the Shame is the musical moniker of Rhett McLaughlin from Rhett and Link. I'm actually a really big Rhett and Link fan. I watch Good Mythical Morning most days. It's kind of how I start my work day, is checking out Good Mythical Morning. So I've been a fan for a very long time, and I really liked his record. It's like a neo country, which is what you expected from him. He's talked about musical influences before, but it's got some just cool background stuff, interesting choices of of instruments on it. And I really, really didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It took me a couple listens for the first single to kind of, penetrate and kind of get into me, but I really, really did enjoy it. It's a very solid record. He's a talented songwriter when it comes to lyrics, and the people he surrounded himself with on the record, all very, very good at what they're doing. It's kind of, I guess, maybe for lack of a better term, a concept album. It's about his Christian deconstruction, losing faith in his God, and it's really, really well done. All right, number 5, my favorite records of the year, Cave In's Heavy Pendulum. I've been a Cave In fan for a really long time. Heavy Pendulum is excellent. I think it's honestly one of their best albums ever. Songs are catchy, riffs are catchy. It's really, really solid stuff. If you haven't listened to them since was it When Your Heart Stops Beating, or I always get the album titles mixed up from the early stuff, but I mean, a lot of people kind of stopped. I feel like Cave In kind of fell off. Like, people didn't really keep up with Cave In, and that's surprising to me, because this album is really, really good, and I kind of hope it shifts attention back to them, because they really did something special. Number 4, the new Slipknot album, The End So Far. I would actually wager to say that this is one of the weaker Slipknot albums, but in a year where I didn't find too much new stuff that I really enjoyed, it kind of, I don't want to say it got onto this list by default, but I liked enough of it that it was like, yeah, it's going to make the list, but it's not going to be number 1. I still think The Grey Chapter is probably their worst album, even though it does have individual tracks that are better than anything on this album. But from start to finish, I feel like this is a better listening experience than The Grey Chapter was start to finish. So that's kind of how this ended up there. Number 3, we already talked about him in the song section, but Paul Cauthen's Country Coming Down. This was a fantastic album. I started listening to country music, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I kind of wavered off, radio pop country and all that stuff into getting more into, I guess, what you'd call modern outlaw country. And Paul Cauthen was somebody I hadn't heard of before this year, and he came up on, I was listening to some Coulter Wall on Spotify, and he came up as a recommended artist, and I saw the picture, and I was like, yeah, that looks like something I might be interested in. Listened to a couple of tracks and really liked it. Saw he had a new album out, listened to it, and then ended up listening to it on repeat for like a whole week. It's fantastic. If you're one of those people that's like, oh, I hate country, maybe give this style of country a try. Maybe this is more to your liking. Number 2, and this was my number 1 up until very recently when when the number 1 album came out, but this is Impera by Ghost. Like I said in the song portion of this, I think it's their strongest album from start to finish. This guy has got to be leading towards making a Broadway musical. These songs are so just like dramatic and over the top and in their composition that, it really seems like he's lending that way. And I honestly think he was heavily, heavily influenced by large scale Broadway musicals throughout this album. It certainly feels like that. You could very much hear this as a soundtrack to going to a Broadway experience, and I hope they continue on doing these crazier and crazier ideas, because it's so far everything he's done is worked. So hats off to him. And then number 1, same with my number 1 for the songs, Rom-Com by Jakey. This album, I will admit, I fucking cried at one point listening to this album. I've been going through some personal stuff for a while now, and this album just kind of hit, at the right time, with the right lyrics, and I just really, really enjoy what he does. I've liked every song that he's released, and I'm glad he was finally able to get like an album out. It got delayed. It was supposed to come out in the beginning of the year. Finally came out in November, and it's been on repeat ever since. I honestly think I'm into like the 40s for how many times I've listened to it, looking at my stats. It's incredible. It really, really just is a fantastic album. If you're into hip hop, rap, give it a listen. Now that the earworm beat boop techno boy till I die music stuff is out of the way, let's get into video games. Before we get to the top 5, I assembled a crack team of individual awards to hand out. The game that I wish I had the time to play. Arcade Paradise. This was a game that I was very much looking forward to. It was going to be a day one purchase, and then unfortunately it came out at a time where I just did not have time to play it. This is going to be a game I think I start playing probably in a few weeks, or maybe after the beginning of the year when things slow down a little bit at work and other things that I have to worry about. It's an arcade management game, kind of. You have a laundromat that has an arcade. You're buying individual games, but you can also play the games, and it just looks real cool. It's got really strong reviews. People that I follow, video game podcasts I listen to and things like that have been talking the game up. And I wish I had the time to play it when it came out, but alas, I did not. But I'm very much looking to finally getting into it. The Back from the Dead Award, WWE 2K22, because man, WWE 2K20 was one of the buggiest games ever released in modern memory. I mean, it was like Cyberpunk levels of bad, just not with all the hype and anticipation and money and expectations behind it. You kind of always expect the WWE games to be kind of garbage. But 2K22, man, they fixed a lot of wrongs. I really enjoyed what they did with it. They took a year off to give themselves some extra time to get the game out, and it paid off. It's a really, really strong outing, and I think if they keep going in this direction and they build off for 2K23 next year, I think they're really, really going to have something special on their hands because, even non-wrestling fans like to play a wrestling game because it's kind of just chaos with your friends, and hopefully they're able to provide that. The best use of LeBron James. I'm going to give it to multiverses. Not going with the NBA game like you would think I would. No, multiverses, because they take the concept of LeBron James and they change your expectations, right? He's not just a basketball man. He's a fighter, a warrior. He can smack around Velma from Scooby-Doo. He can fight off Arya from Game of Thrones and all the rest of the cast of characters of multiverses. I really like what they did there, subverting our expectations with the possibilities of a LeBron James and putting him into new, strange, and exciting opportunities. Good on you, multiverses. The Easy on the Eyes Awards. I was actually kind of, toss up of what I wanted to do here, but I decided to go with Rogue Legacy 2. In my mind's eye, Rogue Legacy 1 was this really cool looking game, cutting edge art style when it came to the pixel art kind of thing. And then when I look back on it, I was like, oh man, that game actually kind of looked like butt a little bit. But Rogue Legacy 2, I really think they polished the idea of that art style and took, the inspiration from it and made it something, turned it into its final form, if you will. I think it's a really, really nice looking game, varied environments. You're not just stuck in a castle, although castle kind of environments and interior is a large portion of it. It's also a great playing game as well. Everything looks really nice on the screen, even though it can kind of fill up and become very chaotic at times. All the enemy designs are quite different. You're not getting confused about where you are. They do some really nice depth of field tricks with the background in some cases, and I really, really enjoyed what they did. And it was a great playing game, but, also a great looking game. Best performance, and this goes to Manon Gage for Immortality, and I still can't pronounce her first name right, so now I'm just going into a horrible French stereotype accent, but this was number one with a bullet. It's unbelievable. It's one of the best video game performances of all time. There's a reason why she's currently nominated and has won so far some video awards this year, real awards, for her performance in the game. Absolutely breathtaking in the role. A challenging role, I'm sure, for any actor. She's playing 3 different characters, and in a way, she's kind of playing 6 different characters, sort of. You have to kind of play the game to kind of understand, you have to understand what it is, but I mean, it's incredible work. She did a tremendous job. I imagine she's off to bright lights in Hollywood, whether she lands on a series or a film. She's getting too much attention right now, getting too many critical accolades. She's going to come home with a bevy of awards at the end of this year, and I have to imagine she's going to have scripts thrown at her from all directions, and she certainly deserves it because she did such an amazing job in the game. Best sports game, and this goes to NBA 2K23. It was kind of neck and neck between MLB The Show, but it started to pull away once you peel back the layers of NBA 2K23, because if you're a particular kind of sports video game player like I am, it has a lot to offer, more so than any other sports game, honestly, ever. It still gets a lot of demerits for how microtransaction-y it is. Still very predatory when it comes to that. I will admit, they got me. I spent about $40 on microtransactions this year before I kind of bowed out of that mode before, kind of focusing my efforts elsewhere with this game. But this is a game I really, really enjoyed. It's a really well done sports game that's obviously made by people that really enjoy the game of basketball, and in a lot of ways, it's a love letter to the history of basketball. Best multiplayer. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, picking up where Modern Warfare 1, I guess, the reboot of Modern Warfare from 2019. Really, really solid multiplayer offering from Call of Duty. I thought Vanguard was okay. It certainly wasn't great last year. I skipped Cold War a couple of years ago, but Modern Warfare 2019 was the game that I played the most after the original Modern Warfare 2. I really, really got into that game. I thought it played really well, super smooth, good map selection, and Modern Warfare 2 is picking right up where it left off. I don't think the current maps that we have in the game come close to the level of map that we had in that one, but we'll kind of see as the seasons of the Battle Pass go, as they add new maps. We'll see where we end up. I'm sure that they're probably going to add in some original Modern Warfare 2 maps. We've already got a couple of fan favorites either already in the game or on the way with Shipment and Shoot House. It's a fun experience. The only big downside I thought this year is they took out my favorite mode, which was hardcore mode. So I was definitely a little down in the dumps about that. But they have a third-person mode, which is very, very cool. And I've actually been playing almost as much of third-person mode as I have been playing the traditional first-person multiplayer. So credit to them for that. The coolest feature in a game this year, and that's Tunic's manual. I thought the element of adding to that manual and the art style and seeing it fill in and unfold and learning that game and seeing how it reacted in real time when you're going through mazes and things like that, or not mazes, going through the dungeons in the game, was just super, super novel and really, really cool. I remember I said this at the beginning of the year when it came out, and I still stand firm by this after seeing everything else that has come out this year, is for kind of best design and even maybe to a degree the look of the game. I did edge out Tunic with Rogue Legacy 2 because Tunic just kind of starts to get a little samey with the overworld. I thought there's a little bit more variety in Rogue Legacy 2, but Tunic should be at the top of everybody's list for like visual style, and if they are giving out some type of award like this for a feature or a function of a game, I think their manual is really cool. I would not be surprised if other games kind of follow suit with doing something similar. And kind of a downer of an award, the biggest disappointment of the year, and that was the new Saints Row, the reboot. I was a really big fan of the original 3 Saints Row games. Saints Row 3 I thought was the best in the series. I didn't really get into Get Out of Hell or Saints Row 4. Saints Row 4 just was too much of a superhero power fantasy for me to really get into. But I was very much looking forward to Saints Row. I really enjoy that style of game, the throwback kind of open world PS3 360 game that GTA 4 kind of, legitimized and GTA 5 perfected, and I was very much ready for another one of those games, as it's been a while since the last Grand Theft Auto, and Saints Row just didn't fill any of those needs. It's poorly written, poorly acted, it has bugs, lacking features that you would expect, very, very bland. The open world is incredibly disappointing. The music selection on the radio is lacking. A lot of them aren't even licensed songs like you would expect. Just really it doesn't have a strong point in the game. It's not a game that you could say, well, it has all these issues, but there is no but in the game. It has all these issues, and that's kind of it. I know they are working hard on trying to patch the game and make things better, but as it stands right now, without a doubt, most disappointing game of the year was Saints Row. Kind of looking forward a little bit before we get to our top 5. My most anticipated announced game of 2023, because obviously we don't know everything that's coming out, and that is Spider-Man 2. I don't know if it's going to get delayed. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but the first Spider-Man game from Insomniac is one of my all-time favorite games. I absolutely loved it. I'm not a big superhero fan, but I am a big Spider-Man fan, and with the announcement that Kraven, one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and I feel a villain that's really underrated underrepresented in movies and TV, and we haven't seen him really at all. I'm very, very excited. And then kind of an honorable mention here, Starfield. I am really looking forward to Starfield. I'm not a big Bethesda fan. I don't like the Fallout games. I've only really played Skyrim. I did enjoy Skyrim, but there's something about Starfield that's pulling me in, and I am really, really looking forward to seeing what they do. And I hope it's the accomplishment that they are gunning for. I wanted to shout out some great games I played this year that just kind of missed the cut for the top 5. So here they are in no particular order, the honorable mentions for Game of the Year 2022. As Dusk Falls. This was on my list until some other stuff kind of came out throughout the year. I really like the idea that they were going for. The visual style, I understand, was a really big turnoff for a lot of people. Personally, it didn't bother me that much. I would have maybe preferred something else, kind of looking back, but certainly not enough to turn me off of the game or to mark it down in any way for me. My biggest issue with this game is the resolution, the ending of the game. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and I think there is absolutely no guarantee that this game is going to get a sequel to wrap up those loose ends. So it kind of just left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Midnight Fight Express. It just didn't have the depth for me. I really enjoyed playing it. It's such a cool idea, and it's really well executed. It's really well made. It's a very fun game, but it just kind of didn't have the legs for me to keep up with it and finish it, but very much enjoyed my time with it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, one of my all-time favorite Super Nintendo games, is Turtles in Time, and this is very much a love letter to Turtles in Time. For me, the reason why I didn't crack my top 5 was it just wasn't long enough. I finished the game in under 2 hours. Maybe if I had kept playing it with friends or something like that, maybe it would have crept its way up on my list. But as it stands, coming out on Game Pass, it was perfect for Game Pass, especially with finishing it in under 2 hours. I streamed the entirety of the game. I had a blast playing it. There's a lot of really cool Easter eggs in it and throwbacks to the previous games, and just Turtles villains that maybe you don't see every day. And I thought that the level design was varied and really well done. Excellent art style. The artists that worked on that game get all the credit in the world. They really did some cool stuff there, and I really very much enjoyed it. Vampire Survivors. I imagine this is going to be a game on the top 5, if not winning, for a lot of outlets this year. I really, really enjoyed the game. I don't think I got as into it and as addicted to it as a lot of other people did, but it's a game that I very, very much enjoyed. I played the hell out of it earlier this year on PC, but it recently just came out on Game Pass, and I kind of been picking it up and playing it on my couch a little bit and kind of getting back into the game. And actually today is the day I'm filming this. They announced some DLC for it, so maybe I'll check that out when it came out. But it's a really cool game. It's a really novel concept, and it's like I said, it's on Game Pass now. You can play it on console and on Game Pass PC. I think they raised the price of the game a little bit. I think when I got it, it was like $2. It's like the best $2 video game of all time. It's really, really great game. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I love the Lego games, and this one is, it's the whole package. It's, the whole Star Wars deal, going from, the 1970s all the way up until just a few years ago when they made the last of the Skywalker movies, at least at this time. If you know what you're getting into with a Lego game, you either like them or you don't. For me, I really like those games. They're very casual games you could sit back and relax, and I like to relax when I play my video games. I don't necessarily like a massive challenge when I play games, so this kind of fit that need really nicely. I honestly thought Tunic was going to be at the top of my list as I was playing this game. I was making my way through, and I was like, man, this might end up being one of my favorite games of this year. But for me, it eventually just got kind of too much in the weeds. I started to realize some of the things I was going to have to do to see a lot of the elements of the game that I may have easily missed, and that's kind of where I made that comparison to Fez earlier. It's one of those games where maybe you had to start keeping a notebook along the way to keep track of everything, and it just wasn't a commitment I was willing to do, but it really, truly is an excellent game, and I urge everyone to check it out. And then last, I already said a lot about this game in previously, but WWE 2K22, they really did kind of bring back a good, solid wrestling game into the market, and they deserve a lot of praise and appreciation for doing that. I don't have much more to say. I think it's not just a step forward, I think it's several steps forward, and I really am looking forward to what they do next year. All right, grab your old shit handle, because we're whipping this car around faster than a mom and dad on their last straw with their kids slapboxing in the backseat of a town and country. It's time for the Perfect Reload End of the Year Memorial Spectacular President's Day Sale Top 5 Games of the Year as voted on by me. Number 5, Rogue Legacy 2. I wasn't able to finish this, not because I didn't want to, but because I'm just not that good at video games. But that didn't matter because I still enjoyed the process of banging my head up against the wall. It's a really rewarding game. The combat is fast, fluid, functional. It makes sense. The powers and abilities with the classes, because it is a procedurally, or not procedurally, a roll of the dice game, roguelike kind of game. I really thought it was varied. I thought the new classes were really nice twists on the formula that we saw with the first game. It excels from the first game in every single direction. There isn't any part of this game where I said to myself, oh, the last game did this particular portion of the game better. It is a fantastic game in all directions, and one of the best of the year. I really, really enjoyed my time in the game. It just eventually got a little bit too hard for me. Number 4, and I was really surprised at this, NBA 2K23, and this made the list for one reason and one reason only. I am a very particular kind of sports nerd. I am a sports nerd that really loves text-based sports simulation games on the PC where I can sim historical seasons, and that's something I haven't ever been able to do in a modern sports game. NBA 2K23 entered a new mode this year called NBA Eras, where you get to play from particular starting points in years past with all the real players, real draft classes, and you could take it all the way to modern days. You could start all the way back at the beginning of the 80s, the year before Michael Jordan enters the league, and or you could start, current day at the beginning of this current season. But they went even further than you would have expected them to. They recorded different commentary for the different eras. There's different on-screen presentations that make it look like the television graphics and presentation of the time. This is 100% a love letter to basketball. There's no other way to say it. And it's also, in my opinion, the best playing basketball game ever made. I think the changes they made initially, I wasn't super high on, but the more I've played the game, I've put a couple hundred hours in at this point. I've really, really enjoyed my time with it. It is a tight basketball game. It rewards people that understand the mechanics of how basketball is played, but it also doesn't punish you too hard if you don't and you're just a casual player. It's really, really well made. Sports games are games that I play a lot of, but I never really give them the same credit I do other games, because for me, it's kind of a game to turn my brain off, relax, play a game, and listen to a podcast, get caught up on my shows for the week, that kind of thing. But this game was too much effort and too good to pass up putting on this list this year. Number 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I thought the single player was good, although to be honest, I didn't finish it because as soon as the multiplayer came out, I switched over to the multiplayer, but it is the tightest first-person shooter multiplayer I have played since 2019's Call of Duty, and I do say that this game probably plays better than that game. Like I said earlier, I think better maps in the last Modern Warfare, but this game so far is a better playing experience. They made a lot of changes with this game, changes to how the battle pass works, changes to how your guns unlock and your camos unlock, and to be honest, I'm not super thrilled with some of those changes, but it does make you play with different guns more so than any other game has made you do that before, allowing you to maybe try out some variety, get out of your comfort zone, play the game a little bit differently than you normally would. And the addition of the third person mode was an excellent choice, though I do hate them with a passion for taking out hardcore mode, but I think Modern Warfare 2 is probably the best Call of Duty we have seen in a very, very long time. Number 2, the surprise of the year for me, because I don't play games like this, and that's The Quarry, and this was number 1 for a really long time on this list until a new game kind of usurped it along the way. I really, really did enjoy this. I think it suffered with a not so great ending. I got the quote-unquote perfect ending with all the people surviving, and I was just didn't have the resolution I was hoping for. It was very light on the ending, a lot of text instead of animation and cutscenes. Very strange choices, but excellent casting with the Hollywood talent that they used. I really, really enjoyed everybody's performance. I didn't think there was really kind of a down performance in any of them. Solid game. I played a little bit of Until Dawn, and I found it to be a little bit too clunky for my taste. In The Quarry, I didn't really run into any issues with the actual mechanics of playing the game. Like I said, I enjoyed the story a lot. It kind of fell short towards the end, but still good enough to place it this high on the list. I'm very glad that I stepped out of my comfort zone to play it, and I'm looking forward to the next kind of big game that Supermassive Games does. Number 1, not just the best game of this year, one of the best games I have ever played in my life, Immortality. I am a huge FMV game fan. You know that if you've seen this channel. I am obsessed with them in a weird way. And this is the greatest FMV game ever made. They essentially filmed 3 movies and had you poke around with them with casting from top to bottom that was absolutely flawless. Not a bad performance among the game. It's a genre that has been riddled with cheesy overacting and horrible writing to the point where they're so bad that we love them anyways. But this is none of that. This is a very adult, a very serious game that is well written, well acted, and well executed on all fronts. It is a testament to a genre that many would probably have considered dead for a really long time. Sam Barlow, I think, is kind of single-handedly bringing what the possibility of FMV was in the mind of developers in the 90s to fruition now in the 2020s. I cannot wait to see what he does next. I cannot wait to see what the cast of this game does next, whether it's another game, a television show, a movie, whatever. It truly is a special game, and one that I will remember for forever, basically. Really, really amazing stuff. So congratulations to Half Mermaid, Sam Barlow, Manon Gage, Ty Molbeck, and the rest of the cast and crew for taking home the top spot, the game of the year for Perfect Reload this year. And that's it for 2022 for me personally. Like I said, it's a little bit of a down year for games. I certainly played less than I normally do, both in terms of hours played as well as quantity of games, but I really enjoyed what I did play. I'm really looking forward to next year, though, because I think that a lot of the major releases coming out next year are a little bit more up my alley than a lot of the major releases this year. I want to thank you, as always, for watching. Kind of restarted the channel recently, and onward and upward as we head into the new year. I hope you take this time at the holidays, if you do get a little bit of a break from work or school, to play some of the games I talked about, play some of the games that you really enjoyed this year. And hey, in the comments, tell me what your favorite stuff this year was. I'd love to hear it, and tell me why, because I want to know maybe what did I miss that I should have played. Take care, and I'll see you soon.